So in the last video, we graded the defense and the goaltending. So because of some life constraints of mine with work and everything like that, the forwards got a chance to earn some extra credit. Let's see how they did. At the end of this video, I'll have a funny story. Well, kind of funny. It wasn't funny at the time, but I can laugh about it now, as to why this video did not come out shortly after the mid-season grades for the defensemen. We'll be doing this video just like that one. Not going to really cite any stats or anything like that, but we're just going to have a generalized look at the players and see who has done what and give them a letter grade and talk about what they've done well and what maybe they can improve on. Now, one thing to consider, there's a little bit different of a criteria for grading the forwards. When I graded the defense, in a way, I kind of graded them as pairs, and their expectations were a little bit different because each one of those pairs is an offensive puck-moving defenseman and a more defensively minded shutdown defenseman. So the capabilities of each of those players is pretty evenly distributed through the lineup, and their time on ice is pretty equal between the three pairs, whereas with the forwards, that structure has changed significantly quite a few times. So there's a lot more in terms of variables of what roles need to be filled, what players are filling them, and which ones are below or exceeding expectations. So first off, I'm starting off with Brendan Lemieux. I'm giving Brendan Lemieux a C+. Lemieux has been a serviceable 13th forward, and he's been in the lineup when needed, which has been pretty frequent as of lately with the injuries to Andrei Svechnikov. While he does not come remotely close to replicating Svechnikov's offensive production, he does bring that physical element, which is the second most important thing that Svechnikov brings. That is the calling card of Pepe's game. He gets in on the forecheck, he hits people, he chirps, he fights, he protects his teammates, and he chips in the occasional point. So he's doing exactly what he's supposed to be doing, nothing more, nothing less, and surprisingly, he's staying out of the box a lot more than I thought that he would. So not drastically exceeding expectations, but also definitely not below them. Henceforth, the C+ as opposed to a C. I flirted with the idea of giving him a B-. If he had more offensive production, he would have had a higher grade, but he's doing his job. Simple, yet effective. Now, moving on to who I believe the Hurricanes have to prioritize re-signing out of all the unrestricted free agents in the forward group, and that is Steph Noesen. Steph Noesen gets an A+. Now, some may ask, why does he get an A+? Because he's exceeded expectations. He's building on where he revitalized his career between the Chicago Wolves 2 seasons ago and the Carolina Hurricanes last season. When the team was struggling early on, one of the biggest reasons they turned it around was Steph Noesen. He has definitely stepped up, become a leader in the locker room, and he sets an example on the ice. The guy never takes a shift off. He's utilized heavily on the power play. He's really important 5-on-5. He adds physicality. He's an excellent forechecker. He goes to the dirty areas and digs pucks out. He spends a ton of time in front of the net, setting up screens, winning board battles. In a lot of ways, Steph Noesen reminds me of my favorite winger of all time other than Justin Williams, in that of Tuomo Ruutu. A game that's a healthy mix of being skilled, dynamic, having sandpaper, and the only reason Steph Noesen, I think, is not utilized on the penalty kill. The Hurricanes are absolutely stacked when it comes to forwards capable of killing penalties, and it's better to distribute that ice time elsewhere with the offensive upside that Steph Noesen has. So they really got to start thinking about paying this guy, because he's doing his role and then some. Speaking of physical, energetic players, next up we're going to talk about Seth Jarvis. I gave Seth Jarvis a B+. And the only reason I gave him a B+ as opposed to an A is I don't think that we've seen everything that he's capable of yet. He's still kind of just scratching the surface. Despite being on the smaller side, he's a little wrecking ball. He plays the game like a 6'4" power forward, and he uses the fact that he's on the smaller side but really strong and has a low center of gravity incredibly well. But you see that high-energy game that he plays where he uses body contact to separate guys from the puck, regain possession. You see him either make a play or take a shot, and he has really revitalized Jordan Staal and Jordan Martinook since they put him on that line. And those two have started having a lot of offensive production that they weren't having before because you added one of the more skilled guys on the team in that of Seth Jarvis to those two. So thanks to Jarvis's ability to be utilized up and down the lineup, the offensive production has become much more even throughout the lineup, and one of the biggest reasons, I think, was Jarvis's move to be with Martinook and Staal. Additionally, he fits really well with them because of that ferocious 200-foot game. And where I believe he has improved the most is defending the point in his own zone. He's utilized on the power play and the penalty kill, but more so on the power play, which works considering all the energy that he plays with. There's a lot of times where he can keep plays alive along the boards. He's gotten excellent at that. And we're starting to see those elements of his game drafted as a center, but applying them as a winger. And I think that we're going to see even more great things out of Seth Jarvis in the very near future. And I have a feeling this year he's going to be a vital playoff performer for the Hurricanes. Up next, we have Martin Necas. The extra credit really helped him out because back at the halfway mark of the season, I had him as a C-. He has since improved to a B-. Necas has a lot of dynamic ability in terms of skating, puck possession, puck distribution, the ability to create time and space and create opportunities for his teammates. That has shown a whole lot more in the last couple of weeks. And this is the thing, it's kind of a Jekyll and Hyde thing when it comes to Martin Necas. When he is confident and he is on, he's not fumbling the puck, he's making smart plays, making smart entries. It is a night and day difference, a confident Martin Necas versus a unconfident Martin Necas. But it looks like he's starting to find that consistency again. It's just a question of how long it will last and how quick he will recover from it in the event that he loses his confidence again. Like I've always said about Martin Necas, he is one of the best skaters in the league. He has incredible vision. He can shoot. He's a great power play weapon. The only thing is he has to mend the disconnect between his brain and his feet and his hands. And then after that, he's going to be incredibly dangerous. And I could see him easily turning into a point per game or an 85 or even a 90-point player consistently. As I talked about with Jarvis, the aspects of being drafted as a center but playing as a winger, Martin Necas has a lot of those in his game still. Part of the reason I don't think he's utilized as a center is he just flies the zone a little bit too quick, or how often he does accidentally turn over the puck when he has possession of it. But when he's playing confidently, he's one of those guys that is noticeable every shift, and he can take over a game. And what he does in open ice needs no introduction. We see how dangerous he is 3-on-3, but 5-on-5, you got to create your own time and space. You got to create time and space for your teammates. That's what Martin Necas is all about, and he's done that really well lately. If he can consistently continue to do this, and next time that he hits a slump, because everybody's going to hit a slump, but the next time that he hits one, as long as he stays tough mentally and comes out of it, he'll be fine. This is one of those guys that you see the talent that Martin Necas has every single shift in his skating ability alone. The hockey IQ is there. Defensively, he's also improved a whole lot, and with him, it wasn't a lack of effort. He's definitely got the speed to be great defensively and back check really well and have a good 200-foot game. It was just more so a fact of knowing what to do when he got to the puck carrier and how to position himself to take away open ice. I think he's improved in both of those things, and I think that we're going to see more good things out of Martin Necas here in the future. It's just a matter of overcoming the mental game, and it looks like he has taken huge steps in that direction. So the next one is a rough one for me to talk about, considering he's one of my favorite players, but the lowest grade out of everybody on the forward group, and the team for that matter, goes to Jesperi Kotkaniemi. I gave him a D+, which really sucks because he started the season off so well, like to the point where it's looking like, okay, this guy is a solid second-line center, to the point where it's a definitive 1-2 punch between him and Aho, that you could maybe utilize KK in more situations than what you were before, give him some more responsibility. He was playing with a ton of confidence, and at some point or another, he fell off a cliff kind of with the rest of the team. It's just the rest of the team has climbed back up, and KK hasn't made it there yet. There's been a lot of people talking about, potentially trading him and everything. I don't think that that's necessary yet. His contract is really good when he's playing well, so I don't think that the Hurricanes need to move him. Not to mention with the cap going up, that deal is only going to get better and better even if he doesn't have a whole lot of production. I personally never really saw Kotkaniemi as a solid, definitive second-line center. I've always seen him as a utilitarian center. I've seen him as a middle six center, someone that you can move up and down the lineup as you needed. Now, last year, after the All-Star break and the Stadium Series game, he really turned it on. He really picked it up. I'm hoping that he's taken a break and gotten himself reset mentally to come back and everything. I noticed in the Washington game, because I was there, how badly he's fighting with his confidence right now. When he does get opportunities, they're not going in. He got forced out of the zone at one point at the aforementioned game. Then it was just really uncharacteristic for a player who plays pretty physically like he does. So ultimately what it comes down to is, let's hope that Jesperi Kotkaniemi Hope that he's taken some time off, and then he comes back and he comes out swinging. He, kind of like I mentioned with Necas, is one of those guys that definitely does seem to struggle a little bit with the mental aspect of the game, but when he's on, he's really on, as we saw in the beginning of the season and saw in the second half last year. But that point production has got to start becoming steady. Defensively, he's been fine, but still pretty uncharacteristic for how good he is normally. He could stand to improve in the face-off circle as well. So I think that the biggest thing that he can do for himself is simplify his game, forecheck, lay the body on people, do the simple things well, play well defensively, start winning the faceoffs again, and then the offensive production will come. The points will come. Pretty simple explanation in regards to KK. He definitely does got to get it together here and keep it together and find some consistency, because that is not there with him right now, and I'm really hopeful that he will recover from the slump that he's in, because I think Jesperi Kotkaniemi is an excellent player. He's very underrated. His development got stunted because it's becoming pretty apparent now that the Montreal Canadiens are not good at developing their players. And Jesperi Kotkaniemi has basically spent his entire career playing from behind and playing catch-up, so I'm hoping for a big improvement from him after the All-Star break between now and the end of the regular season, and he can go into the playoffs hot, because he was very important in that playoff run. I think he was a little underrated in the playoff run last season, so I'm rooting for KK to step it back up, because we all know he's capable of it. We've seen what he can do. So the next one to be graded on the list is going to be the Hurricanes' new addition from the offseason last year in the forward group, and that of Michael Bunting. I gave Michael Bunting a B+. Bunting is doing exactly what you thought that he would do. He's a highly skilled pest. He finishes on a lot of high-danger chances that the Hurricanes were not finishing on before, and he has been really useful in helping this power play that's been really good lately. He's getting under people's skin. He's drawing penalties, but he's not taking too terribly many of them himself. One of the things I was worried about with Bunting was that he was going to spend way too much time in the box, but in my opinion, he's been very satisfactory in that regard. But as far as being someone who helps to add production, the Hurricanes take a lot of shots from the point. They need a lot of those guys who will go in there, get to the front of the net, eat up rebounds, create their own rebounds, cause chaos in front of the net, take the goalie's eyesight away, get them frustrated. Michael Bunting, in a lot of ways, is a goalie's worst nightmare when he's on a team like the Hurricanes that do cycle it back to the point a lot and utilize their defense to put shots on net. So between that and the psychological warfare element he brings, he's had his struggles here and there at times, but one of the reasons I think that this power play will continue to stay lethal, Michael Bunting is a specialist everywhere in and around the opposing team's net and their goal line. Up next, a player who people have said has second-line center potential, and he is really, really showing it, and by far, he has improved the most of everyone on the team this season in that of Jack Drury. I gave Jack Drury a B+. Despite having a slow start, many having their doubts, myself included, Jack Drury has proven everybody wrong. While he was being solid defensively before, the offensive production was just not there, and now it looks like that he has found that, and he's been a steady producer since December. He's been a big part of the team's improvement, high IQ playmaking ability, but you're seeing how skilled of a player Jack Drury actually is now, especially with his puck distribution, and the scoring touches there too. If he continues on this trajectory, Jack Drury will be legitimately a second-line center, and I look forward to seeing what improvements that he's going to continue to make. Next up, we have Jesper Fast. The Hurricanes made a really good decision extending this guy because he's one of those guys that you can move up and down the lineup. Therefore, I gave him a B+. What you see is what you get with Jesper Fast. You get a decent amount of production. You get that veteran depth presence. And as you can see, ever since they swapped him out with Jarvis, has improved Jesper Fast's former line mates in that of Martinook and Staal. But he also adds that extra little bit of scoring punch to the bottom six. Really good defensively. Good at finding open ice to receive outlet passes. Although he's Swedish, I always have seen Jesper Fast as a Swiss Army knife, and he's one of those guys that takes a good team and makes it significantly better, and does so kind of quietly, a lot of intangibles, but he's doing exactly what you need him to do. And we all know what he did last year in the postseason. Let's hope he can do something like that again, except maybe a little bit less painful, but in that particular moment, I don't think he felt a thing. Up next, we have the captain, Jordan Staal. I gave Jordan Staal an A-. Now, the reason Jordan Staal got an A- was not only what he does as being one of the best defensive centers in the game, having one of the best defensive sticks among all the forwards in the league, using his reach, using his size, and being an excellent penalty killer. He has also been a great leader for this team. There was some criticism of his leadership. There's some people who say he's not fiery enough, he doesn't yell enough, but a lot of times that's not what you need. A lot of times you need a guy who's going to calm things down because hockey is a chaotic game. And you need someone with that calming element, that element to stabilize the locker room when things aren't going well, and make sure that the team doesn't get too far ahead of itself when things are going well. Don't get overconfident. Jordan Staal does a really good job of keeping that locker room straight, and the influences that he's going to have on who is likely the next captain and that of Sebastian Aho are going to be very important. He still sets an example on the ice. He doesn't take a shift off. Despite not being the fastest guy, he uses that long stride of his to reduce time and space, uses his reach to execute takeaways, and he's absolutely excellent in the face-off circle. He's always put out there for really important draws. Face-offs are one of those things where it's an art, not a science. To indicate how good that he is in the face-off circle, whenever the Hurricanes have an important draw in any situation, he's pretty much always the guy taking it. He's not doing it as much as he was before. Aho's starting to do that a little bit more often. But Jordan Staal is still the guy who goes out there and tries to win the opening draw in overtime so that the Hurricanes can take possession. That's how much they trust him in the face-off circle. He's always out there killing the really important penalties. He's always out there at the end of a close game making sure that the Hurricanes come home with the W. Not the flashiest, but you can't ask for a much better shutdown center. And despite getting a little bit older and his role being reduced, he does a great job of shutting down their league's best, making sure games stay close so that the big guns like Aho and Svechnikov can go out there and put the puck in the net and win, and he chips in some offensive production of his own. So, speaking of the guys who you expect to get a ton of production out of, and we're going to kind of talk about the SAT line as a whole because we've seen it a lot in the past few weeks, and they look like they have some chemistry, but we're going to start with Teuvo Teravainen. I had a hard time grading Teravainen. I'm not going to front with you guys. I was 50-50 on whether I wanted to give him an A or a B, and I ultimately resulted giving him a B-. He started off the season with a ton of production. He really stepped up those couple of games that Aho was out of the lineup, and he made some plays that just reminds everybody how high-skilled that he really is. A lot of people look at Teuvo Teravainen, they don't see a person who's very expressive. They see someone who's very stoic, and they take that as he doesn't care. It's not that. Teuvo Teravainen just plays a calm, cool, and collected game. He has ice in his veins, but he's doing the biggest things that you need for him to do, being really sound defensively, being a great safety valve on that left side, and distributing the puck so that Sebastian Aho and Andrei Svechnikov can have more opportunities of their own. Teuvo Teravainen is the definition of a playmaking winger who, when he finds chemistry, the production comes, and even on nights where he's not producing directly, if tertiary assists were a thing, he would have a ton of them because he creates a lot of opportunities in all three zones with his passing ability and his vision. And him being able to take on a lot of the defensive workload helps out someone like Sebastian Aho, who does play a defense-first game but has a ton of production. When Teuvo Teravainen is on, he's the perfect winger for the Hurricanes' first-line center and first-line right wing. And he has really helped amplify those two while getting plenty of production of his own. I think as time goes on, Teuvo Teravainen will maintain where he's at, improve a little bit maybe. He's in a contract year. I don't think we see him back with the Hurricanes next season. I think he'll ultimately be a cap casualty because he has earned a little bit of a raise in my opinion, and there won't be room for him in Carolina in my opinion, not to mention with Felix Unger-Sorm making the team next season, I personally believe. But this is the closest we've seen to 2018-2019 Teuvo Teravainen that we've seen in a long time. Very cerebral player, very defensively minded when he's away from the puck, but very selfless when he does have the puck. Sometimes he's a little bit too selfless, so if he ever finds and maintains that happy median of, hey, this is a good chance for me to shoot, and maybe I shouldn't pass it, because there are times where it looks like Teuvo Teravainen has 3 foot of net and he still passes it anyway, but most of the time he is selfless in the right situations. I just wish he'd be selfish a little bit more often, shoot the puck more. He's got a heck of a shot. So moving on to talk about the other Jordan Martinook, who also wears a letter. I had a really hard time deciding. I was torn somewhere between A- and B. I ultimately settled on B+ for Jordan Martinook. The reason I was thinking about giving him an A- is we're seeing that streaky scoring out of him again. The name of his game is speed, and more speed. Part of the reason Jordan Martinook scores in bunches is he is a specialist when it comes to being a forechecking winger. Taking away ice and preventing transition of his offensive zone is his specialty. When he's constantly in the other team's face when they're trying to break out, he becomes a very overwhelming presence, forces more turnovers, more time of possession for him, more pucks that he's putting on net, more passes he's making, and when he's playing incredibly confident like he is right now, then the scoring just comes in waves. Jordan Martinook is very much someone who demonstrates the idea of effort leading to reward. how good he is in the locker room and how much the team loves him and how much of a glue guy he is. Needs no introduction, brings a ton of sandpaper, will stick up for his teammates, will drop the mitts if he has to, and excellent penalty killer. Jordan Martinook is definitely one of my favorite Hurricanes, one of the most important acquisitions the Hurricanes have made via trade since Dundon and Waddell took over. So we only have 2 players left. The first I'm going to speak of between those two is Andrei Svechnikov. I gave Andrei Svechnikov an A. I considered giving him an A+. The reason I ultimately went with an A is it took him a little bit to get going after the injury, which is to be expected. But once he got going, once he got caught up, once he had that storybook moment in the game versus Vegas, the team in which he incurred his injury against in PNC Arena, he's been lighting it up ever since then. He's still recovering from whatever this new upper body injury is. He's still in a yellow non-contact sweater. That's nothing to be alarmed about. Sometimes guys will wear the non-contact sweater until the last minute, but he worked his way up back to being a point-per-game player by being the Andrei Svechnikov we know. When he's playing his best, he has an overwhelming physical presence every single shift. He's out there laying hits. He's a sniper. He has an intimidating presence. He really is a true power forward, and he's been incredibly helpful to the power play lately. I'm looking forward to him getting back in the lineup. When it comes to being an intimidating force, he is number 1 on the team. He and the person who's going to be mentioned next, and we saved the best for last, have found consistent chemistry. He's only going to become more dangerous. Last, but sure as hell not least, Sebastian Aho gets an A+. I have on many occasions said that I think that Sebastian Aho will never have a 100-point season, and he is trying his best to prove me wrong. This guy has done everything since he really got going in December. He was essential to getting the team out of the mud. I would bet that during the closed-door meeting, he definitely had the floor for a lot of it, and he has set an example ever since then with his play. You get everything out of him. Great 200-foot play, hard forechecking, preventing transition, denying zone entries, making clean entries at the other end, and then the best part about watching him lately, you know what you're getting out of him in 2 zones, but lately, the Sebastian Aho in the offensive zone and the Sebastian Aho on the power play in particular have been a completely different monster. And he does all this while constantly matched up, especially on the road, with the other team's best forward lines and their best defensemen. Right now, he's about on pace for 95 points. I would like to see him get 100, but he's proving why he is the next captain of the team whenever that time comes. And as much as I talk about how great Sebastian Aho is because of his skill, his compete level is off the charts, and I think that that is his biggest asset as a hockey player, is the fact that he does not like to lose. While a lot of people, myself included, don't describe him as a game breaker or a difference maker all the time, lately he's starting to prove that wrong too. Aho's one of those players that's really noticeable every shift, but lately he's been taking over shifts and to some degree taking over games. If he can become that guy who starts taking over games at will, and he does have that capability, then the Hurricanes are looking good for when the postseason comes. So that's going to be it for the player grades for now. I'm going to try and do them again at the end of the season with comparisons to what was done in the mid-season. And that is the end of this video as far as the subject matter that you probably clicked on to watch. I do want to tell you why this video did not come out 2 weeks ago. So I'm an avid airplane nerd, so this is kind of a funny story. This is one of many models that I have. This one in particular is an FA-18C from VF309. So I started to make the video since I thought I had some more time, because initially that morning we were going to leave at like 6 in the morning. So then we found out that we could get an earlier flight. I started making the video, but I ran out of time. I'm like, okay, I'll just worry about it when we get back. And we got there, we board the aircraft on time, and then we go out on the tarmac and we sit there for nearly 2.5 hours because it was taking them forever to de-ice the planes. Because if you've ever been on an aircraft when it's been snowing and ice builds up on the wings, that reduces the lift, and that's not good. That stuff has to get rinsed off the aircraft, and they use a special agent to do that, and it took us forever to get flying. That business trip was an unprecedented nightmare after that. It was just a horrible week all around, and then I came back and I had to work 70 hours in 8 days, so this is the first day off I've had since I went on that trip. So that's why there's not been any new videos lately, and I never wanted to get on an airplane again after that. I was just so annoyed that we were sitting there for so long. Videos will start becoming more frequent again. I'm planning on being down there for the games on the 22nd and the 24th this month. I will additionally be attending the Fayetteville Marksman game on the 23rd, so I look forward to having a hockey-filled weekend. Y'all take care. I will see you next time.